Hi everyone, I'm Steven and today I'm making Spider-Man's PS4 web shooters out of cardboard. If you're curious, please subscribe, like this video, and let's get to it! To start off, I traced my wrist onto some cereal box cardboard so I could know how wide it was. After roughly drawing on the silhouette of the web shooter, I cut it out and sketched out a few additional details. Since the web shooter needs to be symmetrical, I folded it in half to get it even on both sides. I then used this rough shape to figure out the length and width of the center tube, or whatever you want to call it. I guess I'll call it the cartridge. For that cartridge, I rolled a small piece of newspaper until I got a tightly packed roll. To prevent it from unraveling, I just taped it closed with some masking tape. On some reference images, I noticed that the cartridge is thicker in the middle than on the two ends. To accomplish that effect, I just rolled another piece of paper around the tube, but made sure that this new piece was thinner than the last one. This was rolled around the center of the first tube and also taped shut with some masking tape so it wouldn't unravel. Using that tube as well as the rough shape that I cut out in the first step, I sketched out a slightly more detailed version of the web shooter. It has a bunch of different angles that are a little tricky to cut out, and I couldn't find my X-Acto knife, so I had to carefully cut out everything with scissors. This is what the shape looks like, and I'm going to call it the top layer. With two of those top layers cut out, one for each wrist, I wasn't entirely sure what to do next, so I decided to work my way from the bottom up. I put the top layers aside and cut out the T-shaped piece of cereal box cardboard and bent the two prongs so they would slant on a diagonal. The paper cartridge is able to sit right in this little piece, and it stayed in place after I applied some super glue. I also glued on the top layer, but this was mainly to help me visualize the next step. So the next step was to figure out how to fill in these openings. In the reference images I found online, these openings slant inward toward the cartridge, however they also look a little bit thicker towards the two ends. I used some scrap cereal box cardboard and slid it slightly in between the cartridge and the bottom piece. This piece was then trimmed and cut until I got something that would fit, however I did have to trim it later on after everything was glued just to make the sides even. If you watched my Medal of Yavin video, you'll recognize what I'm about to do. Since these pieces are thicker in one section and angled down, I added 3 layers of cardboard to one side of the centerpiece. Once those layers were super glued in place, I sandwiched another piece on top of the entire thing, so you can no longer see that stack of cardboard that was stacked at the end. I was then able to bend this piece so the bend would look smooth. It's basically just a way to hide all those layers, keeping the top of it looking very clean. I repeated this process for the other side before super gluing them onto the web shooter and holding in each piece until the glue dried. After that, I glued the ends of the top layer down and also glued on 2 layers of a thin strip of cardboard that resembled the design that I noticed in some of the reference images. I put it up to my wrist to check on the progress, and although I liked it, I thought it looked a little flat, so I decided to add some extra detail work to the top layer. Off camera, I cut out a design that kind of resembled the angles on the top of the PS4 web shooter. To make the center part of it a little bit more raised up than the rest of it, I first super glued on a thin strip of cardboard and then layered the other piece on top of it. It's a subtle height difference in the center, but I like it. Oh, and for the end caps on either end of the web shooter, I seem to say this in a lot of videos, but I purposely keep some pieces longer and then just trim off the excess. It makes building these props so much quicker and easier than if I had measured out each piece perfectly. So I just glued on a bigger piece and then cut off everything that I didn't need. For these end caps, I just glued on slanted pieces of cardboard and cut off the overhang. Super simple, but it looks pretty cool. Okay, so in order to wear these web shooters, I cut out 2 thin strips of cereal box cardboard to use as wristbands, one for each web shooter. I roughly measured how long they needed to be and then wrapped each of the strips in masking tape. The tape helps prevent the cardboard from ripping, but also protects it from any sweat that you might have around your wrist. I'll attach them with hook and loop after the first part of the paint job. And speaking about paint, I learned my lesson with the Iron Man Infinity Gauntlet and I did not paint the entire thing in black. I started with red first because red craft paint is not very opaque and it would have taken way too many layers to cover up any black craft paint. I did about 2 coats of the red and then 2 coats of the black, let that dry, and then I put on the hook and loop. Once I got them comfortably positioned around my wrist, I went in with 1 more coat of red and then used a very, very small paintbrush to carefully paint some silver craft paint on top of some of the black. Anyway, in a few seconds, I'll be back with the finished product. So there you have it, Spider-Man's PS4 web shooters made out of cardboard, paper, and tape. I'm pretty happy with these web shooters. It's a really cool design, and although I simplified it a little bit, I think I did a pretty decent job. This was a viewer requested prop, and I had a lot of fun making it. If you like it and want to watch some of my other Spider-Man web shooter videos, I put links to them in the description of this video. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you have any requests. I'd love to hear from everyone. I'd also love it if you would subscribe to my channel and like this video. Thanks for watching and talk to you soon everyone, bye bye! Just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.